Speaking, how can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description?
She asks one question: how many adults are on that boat? The answer that comes back makes no sense. 0 adults. Nobody's over 21. That's not what she asked. She asks again, and again, 3 times in 3 different ways before anyone on that call will say how many people are actually out on the water. That's the moment. 18 years old, water rising around him, and somewhere in the background of a call that would later be picked apart by millions of strangers, a voice can't give a straight answer to a simple question. Before we go any further, you need to know what you're about to watch. This case involves the death of a teenager, a 911 call, and details that are genuinely disturbing. If that's not what you're looking for tonight, this isn't the video for you, and that's completely fine. If you're staying, do 2 things for us right now. Hit subscribe, because we're going to be tracking every single development in this case until there's an actual answer. And drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from tonight. We read every single one. Now let's go back to the beginning, because that call you just heard isn't even close to where this story starts. His name was Nolan Wells, 18 years old, 4th of July weekend, out on the water with a group of friends, headed to a stretch of sand off the Mississippi coast called Horn Island. The kind of afternoon that ends up on nobody's radar unless something goes wrong. Something went wrong. By that evening, Nolan was gone. Not injured, not delayed, not lost and found the next morning. Gone. And in the weeks since, this case has pulled in defense attorneys, a district attorney bound by professional conduct rules she can't fully explain on camera, a sitting television judge, national commentators, and a family now preparing for a fight that could stretch on for years. We are not going to hand you a verdict tonight. Nobody has one. What we're going to do is walk you through every confirmed piece of this case, exactly as it exists, and tell you plainly whenever we cross the line from fact into theory. Because that line matters, and too much of what's circulated about this case has blurred it on purpose. Stick with us tonight, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why a case that started with a distress call about a sinking boat has turned into something a lot of people believe is far darker. Think about how many things had to go right for this story to reach you at all. A records request had to get filed. Someone had to notice a discrepancy buried in a timeline nobody else was checking closely. A friend of Nolan's had to be willing to sit for hours of hard questions on camera, knowing full well how it might look. None of that was guaranteed. Most cases like this one never get that kind of scrutiny. They get a short obituary, a quiet county file, and nothing else. This one didn't stay quiet, and by the time we're done tonight, you'll understand exactly why. Most people who have followed this case have only heard 15 seconds of it. A clip. A soundbite ripped out of context and passed around online with a caption doing all the work the actual audio never did. The real recording runs almost 8 minutes. It was released directly by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, a records release, not a leak. And for the first time, we're going to walk through it the way it actually unfolded, not the way a 15-second clip wants you to remember it. A quick note before we start. There are other versions of this audio floating around right now, versions run through outside software by people claiming to have pulled extra clarity out of the background noise. None of that has been verified by any outlet, any law enforcement agency, or Nolan's own family. We're working from the original. Nothing enhanced, nothing altered. And wherever a section is genuinely hard to make out, we're going to say so instead of telling you what to hear. The call opens with a teenager.
How can I help you?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello?
you say? Hey,
Yes, how far is the water coming up, sir?
it's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down.
Get you over to the captain. What's the best phone number to reach you at?
Reach me at 2.
All right. And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's
How
on
many?
board.
All right. Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
What?
Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
No, we do not need that.
All right. All right. Do you have your current GPS coordinates?
Let me go look.
If not, I can send you a text message.
North. All right, are you ready?
Yes, sir. I'm available.
North 30 degrees. By 4672.
All right, 4672. All right, and you were breaking up a little bit. Can you just repeat it one more time to make sure I have it correct?
Sorry, look.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, what?
So you're breaking up. If you need assistance, do you have a VHF radio?
No, we do not have the VHF radio.
All right, well, let's try to get you going because you don't have good cell phone reception. Can you verify your coordinates one more time?
Okay, my coordinates are 30 degrees by 14.684 north, and then west by 88 degrees by 46.79.
Right, looks like you're on Horn Island, correct? Are you
Yes,
on
we are
Horn
at Horn
Island?
Island. Yes.
All right, is the boat sinking or you have it aground?
We were sinking, yes.
Is it aground is the question?
No, we're not aground. We are in
Okay.
17 foot of water. We're in 31 foot of water.
All right, have to ask. What do you want to do? Do you want to be towed back?
I want to get this boat unsank and towed back, yes.
All right, where would you like it towed to, sir?
You can tow it to Ocean Springs Harbor, or Fort Bayou launch.
All right, how many adults and children on board?
No, there's no children.
So, is there anybody on board? How many adults, sir? That was the question. Hello, can you hear me?
Try to jump in and pull the plug while you're going.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yep, I just need you to answer these questions so I can get you over to the captain.
Okay,
How many
what's
adults
going
on board?
There's 0 adults on board.
There's nobody on board the boat?
No. Nobody
right.
here is over the age of 21.
Sir, that was not the question. Is there a person? Is there a person, a living individual on the boat?
Hello?
Is there a living person, someone breathing on the boat? Is there anybody on the boat?
Yes, there's lots of people breathing on the boat.
All right, how many people, sir?
Like 7.
All right, thank you. Does everyone have life jackets on or available to them?
Yes, we have life jackets available.
All right, verify what boat's sinking.
A Triton, 22-foot offshore, 22-foot Triton offshore sea flight hull.
All right. All right. Please hold. I'm transferring you to the local captain now.
Okay, thank you.
This is Captain Seth.
Hi, Captain Seth. This is Vicky from International. How you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. I apologize ahead of time. I really do. You're going to have a fee-for-service come up under...
Okay.
It sounds like a bunch of kids on board on Horn Island. He's letting me know that his father's a member, but he can't give me any information. And he's saying the boat is sinking, and he's on Horn Island. it's just unfortunate. He's just a kid. There's a lot going on. So
Right.
he said there's about a lot of people on board. He says he thinks about 7. I'm guessing they're all under 18.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be rude. He wants you guys to go out there and unpump the boat and then tow it in.
Do you know what kind of boat it is?
He said a Triton 24-footer, but that's all he can give me.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just actually got off the phone with his grandpa, who I'm guessing is the owner of the boat. And he said,
Okay.
I just hung up with him. He said that they don't need any help right now, but if something changes, they'll
United
call me
Cajun
back.
Navy allegedly responded and was looking for Nolan, and then point 3 is where they allegedly approximately found Nolan. Now we know he was more on the shore, but what doesn't make sense to me is why would they say they were sinking if the coordinates he gave weren't in an area that was sinking, right? Now, here's something else. Officer Race Batum Tatum is saying that the audio, you just hear what you want to hear. He's saying it's now been confirmed by TMZ that Nolan was still on the island when the boat left. But the reason everybody says, why would the kids say all this stuff? You know, Charles from TMZ says it, because if you listen closely, the minute Wyatt starts talking, everybody hushes up. Everything important was said before they realized that Wyatt is on that call. Another thing, if somebody was allegedly out of town on this day, why was their name listed on the report, and why would his name be called out in this audio? Here's the thing. He says, we're going down, we're sinking. So if that is true, why would Jerry Ackerson, your grandfather, cancel the tow? Why would you cancel the Coast Guard if you are sinking? Wouldn't you think the grandfather, who's the owner of that boat, and those are his grandkids, would want to just make sure those kids were safe? Why would you cancel the tow? This seems like an alibi phone call to me. Now, you can hear on the recording, he tells somebody, jump in and pull the plug. Now, if you pull the plug on the hull, that means the boat will start to fill with water. And this only works if the boat is moving, and then water will drain out. But their boat was not moving when he yells, jump out. Now, this leads people to allegedly believe that they weren't even on the boat. And another thing, there's a person of interest, allegedly Griffin Miles, who owns a boat detailing company who they think could have been allegedly the person who was cleaning the boat. This just goes under things that make you go, why would Wyatt give coordinates saying they're sinking when they are literally in 4 to 8 feet of water, not sinking?
The call opens with a teenager reporting a boat taking on water. Panicked, breathless, the kind of voice you'd expect from someone watching a boat fill up with water miles from shore. The dispatcher, a woman named Vicky, starts working through her checklist. Location, number of people on board, whether anyone's hurt. And that's where things get strange. Insert audio clip here, the how many adults on board exchange, roughly 15-20 seconds. She asks how many adults are on the boat. What comes back isn't an answer, it's a loop. 0 adults. Nobody's over 21. That's not the question. She asks again differently, still nothing usable. A third time. Only then does someone confirm there are actual people on that boat at all. There are 2 ways to hear that. One reading treats the hesitation as something heavier, someone stalling, choosing words with unusual care for a moment that should require none. The other reading is simpler. A terrified teenager, a breaking connection, and a question that doesn't map cleanly onto how a group of scared kids would think to describe themselves in the middle of a crisis. Confusion and evasion can sound almost identical on tape. Neither explanation has been confirmed. Both are sitting right there in the audio for you to weigh yourself. There's something else in that stretch worth mentioning. The voice cuts in and out, trails off mid-sentence, goes quiet for a beat before picking back up, like part of the conversation is happening somewhere the dispatcher can't fully hear. Some listeners have described that as sounding deliberate, like a phone being covered or muted. The far more ordinary explanation is bad signal near an island and a panicked kid fumbling a phone while trying to keep a boat afloat. We're not telling you which one is true. Nobody has the tools to tell you that yet. Here's a detail that gets buried every time this case comes up. The dispatcher eventually transfers the call to a private towing company, and while the original caller is on hold, something happens on a completely separate line, something he has no part of at all. The captain of the towboat gets a call from someone else entirely, the boat owner's grandfather, a man who was nowhere near the water that day. When the captain comes back on the line, he tells the dispatcher the grandfather said they don't need help anymore. If something changes, he'll call back. Sit with that timeline for a second. A panicked teenager just reported a boat actively sinking. Minutes later, an adult who wasn't even present cancels the entire rescue request on a different line altogether. There's a completely ordinary explanation. Bilge pumps sometimes catch up once weight shifts or a manual pump kicks in. A frightened first call followed by, "We've got it handled," a few minutes later happens on the water more often than people realize. But it's a fair question to ask why the person canceling help wasn't one of the kids who was actually still out there, and nobody has ever explained where that grandfather was getting his information from in that exact moment. Two facts, sitting side by side, no interpretation required to notice them. Set the phone call aside completely for a second. Because what that boat physically did after leaving Horn Island is documented in a way that doesn't depend on anyone's memory or anyone's tone of voice on a recording. GPS data, reported across multiple outlets, lays out the shape of that afternoon. The boat left its original dock around 9:56 that morning and reached Horn Island a little after 11. The distress call went out around 4 that afternoon. The boat left the island roughly 30 minutes later, got towed a short distance, and the tow ended. Then instead of heading home, it kept moving, back to the original dock, then to a spot called Fort Bayou, then back to the dock again, then to Fort Bayou a second time. It wasn't pulled from the water for good until that evening. However you slice the individual minutes, that shape holds across every version of the timeline that's been reported. Multiple stops, more than an hour that's never been publicly accounted for, all on a trip that's been described, until recently, as a straightforward ride home. Nobody in the friend group has given a public minute-by-minute account of why that boat kept doubling back, or what was happening during any of those stops. Before we go further, we need to clear something up, because misinformation has spread through this case almost as fast as the real developments have. There's an image circulating online, presented as if it shows Nolan lying on a beach, apparently being attacked by a group of people. It is not Nolan. It has nothing to do with this case at all. It's a completely unrelated photo from a completely unrelated incident that got attached to his name and pushed back out as if it were real. If you see it shared anywhere, it's false, and passing it along only makes it harder for anyone to separate what's actually documented here from what's been invented. There's a second piece worth correcting. A short clip has circulated of someone shouting, seemingly in distress, about wanting their phone back, shared by some as if it were Nolan's own voice. One of Nolan's friends has said directly on the record that the voice on that clip is his own, not Nolan's. That doesn't settle anything about what happened to Nolan that day, but it does mean one specific piece of evidence that's been used to build an entire theory isn't what it was presented as. We're telling you this because getting a case like this right means being just as careful about what's false as we are about what's genuinely unresolved. Jackson County's District Attorney, Angel Mears McKillrap, has gone public with a statement addressing the frustration a lot of people watching this case have felt. Her message, boiled down: the pace of this investigation isn't casual. It's careful. Every piece of evidence has to be examined. Every witness account has to be weighed against everything else that's been gathered. Under Mississippi's rules of professional conduct, prosecutors are restricted in what they can say publicly during an active investigation. According to her, the silence isn't an attempt to hide anything. It's an attempt to protect the integrity of a process that's still moving toward a grand jury. A law professor from Mississippi Christian University's School of Law, Matt Steffi, has backed that up, explaining it's a part of legal procedure most people never have reason to learn. Here's why that statement, reasonable as it is on paper, hasn't landed the way it was probably meant to. It arrived into a public conversation being driven almost entirely by things that didn't come from her office at all: the unedited call, the GPS data, a leaked text message. None of that came through an official briefing. It came through records requests, leaks, and outside reporting, while the office actually running the investigation has stayed almost completely silent. And that silence landed the same week one of Nolan's closest friends sat for a long, on-camera interview with a commentator, answering questions about the phone, about that final afternoon, about whether he had anything to do with Nolan's death, entirely outside any official channel. The people with the least authority to comment on this case are saying the most. The people running the actual investigation are saying almost nothing, by design. That gap is exactly where a case like this starts getting shaped by whoever's willing to talk, instead of whoever actually knows the most. None of that means the DA's office is doing anything wrong. Professional conduct rules exist for a reason, and prosecutors who talk too freely during an open investigation can hand a defense attorney grounds to challenge the entire case later on. But knowing that doesn't make the silence any easier to sit with if you're a parent watching your son's case get discussed on national television by people who were never in that county, never spoke to a single witness, and have no actual access to the evidence file. The system may be working exactly as designed. It just doesn't feel that way from the outside. If you're finding this as thorough as we're trying to make it, do us a favor and hit that like button right now. It's the single biggest thing that gets this case in front of more people who deserve to know about it. And if you've got a theory of your own after everything you've heard so far, drop it in the comments. We read every one of them, and we bring the sharpest ones into our next update. Now here's where this case takes a turn most people haven't heard yet. For weeks, there have been two completely different versions of how Nolan's final afternoon ended. His friend group has said, consistently, that Nolan chose to stay behind on the island, that he was in the water with a young woman, referred to publicly only as Katie, that when the group called for him to get on the boat before they left, he told them no, he was staying. Katie's account, relayed first through her mother and sister and later directly to Nolan's mother, Christine, says something different. According to Katie, Nolan told her he intended to head back and rejoin the group before the boat left. Not stay. Go. She never actually watched him get on that boat. She's describing something he told her, an intention, not something she witnessed. But it's the exact opposite of what the friend group has said, coming from the one other person confirmed to have spoken with Nolan in his final minutes on that island. Now hold that up against the audio you heard at the very top of this video. If, and this is still unconfirmed, still disputed, if the background noise on that call really does include someone asking about Nolan, someone telling another person to wake up in the minutes right after that boat left the island, that doesn't fit a story where Nolan calmly chose to stay behind alone. A boat full of people panicking about Nolan only makes sense if Nolan was somewhere they could actually see. We need to be precise here, because it would be easy to overstate this. Nobody has forensically verified what's underneath that hold music. This is not proof Nolan was on that boat. What it is a piece of evidence, disputed, unconfirmed, but real, that for the first time actually makes sense of Katie's version of events in a way nothing else has managed to. That changes which questions actually matter from here forward. Because if Katie's account turns out to be the accurate one, this isn't a small detail. It reshapes the entire case. It means Nolan wasn't left behind by people who genuinely believed he'd chosen to stay. It means something happened on that boat, in front of people, in its final minutes on the water, and everything that came after it needs to be understood in a completely different light. Katie isn't the only person who's put a timestamp on the last time they saw Nolan. 3 of his friends have too, and laid side by side, their stories don't line up. Tristan says the last time he personally saw Nolan was about 10 minutes before a fight broke out on the beach, when Nolan was walking toward a boat with Katie. Javan says that same fight happened around 4 p.m., and that when he returned to the dock roughly 20 minutes later, both boats and Nolan were already gone. Warren says the last time he saw Nolan was around 3 p.m., on the front of that boat with Katie, sometime before the group started calling for him to get on board around 4:30. Katie's sister, relaying what Katie told her, says Katie simply assumed Nolan had made it onto the boat because everyone was calling for him. Do the math on that and it doesn't hold together. Warren places Nolan on the boat with Katie at 3 p.m. Tristan places him walking toward that same boat 10 minutes before a fight Javan puts at 4 p.m., which would put Tristan's sighting closer to 3:50. So which is it? Was Nolan on that boat a full 50 minutes before Tristan says he watched him walking toward it? Did he get off at some point and head back later? Nobody's public account explains that gap. Then there's the fight itself, something nobody in this case had even mentioned publicly until these accounts surfaced. A physical altercation breaking out on the beach at the exact same time. The group says they were trying to get Nolan on board and leave. Javan comes back 20 minutes after that fight, around 4:20, and both boats are already gone. Warren's account has the group still calling for Nolan up until 4:30. That's a 10-minute window where one account has the boats gone, and another has them still waiting. We're not going to sit here and tell you someone's lying. It's entirely possible every person here is describing the same chaotic hour as honestly as they remember it. Memory under stress, during a fight, right before someone goes missing, isn't exactly reliable. But these 4 accounts, as they've been given, cannot all be true at the same time. Something in this timeline is off, and as of tonight, nobody has explained what. Warren Hudson gave the longest, most detailed public account of anyone in that friend group, hours of it, on camera, answering hard questions directly. That matters, and it's worth acknowledging. But a long account is also something you can check against itself, and there are places where his own story doesn't hold together. Here's the first one. When Warren is asked why the group rushed to get the boat running and leave, he doesn't start with the sinking boat at all. He starts with a fight, his own younger brother getting punched, punching back, the whole thing getting broken up. Asked directly if Nolan was involved, Warren says no, absolutely not. Now hold that against what we already know. Javan has separately described a fight around 4 p.m. involving a friend who appears to be Tristan. Tristan has said he saw Nolan walking toward the boat 10 minutes before that same fight. So which fight is this? Is Warren describing the exact same one Javan and Tristan are talking about, meaning Warren's brother and Tristan might be tangled up in the same incident? Or did 2 separate fights break out on that beach within the same chaotic window? Nobody has clarified that. And it matters because everyone was distracted by a sinking boat is a very different story than everyone was distracted by a sinking boat and 1, possibly 2, fist fights breaking out on the sand at the same time. Here's the second one. Warren contradicts himself in the same breath about a detail that's mattered since the beginning of this case, when Nolan's mother first learned the boys had his phone. At one point he says he never spoke to Christine about it. That first contact came around 12:30 that night when a group of others showed up at the house demanding it. Almost immediately after, in the same answer, he says something different, that he told her about the phone on the call before he reached the Coast Guard. 2 different timelines for the same fact, from the same person, seconds apart. That could be exactly what it looks like, someone talking fast under pressure, misspeaking about one of the worst nights of his life. We're not telling you it proves anything was hidden. We are telling you this detail, when a mother learned her son's phone was sitting in a friend's truck, is one of the more important timestamps in this entire case, and even the person who was there hasn't given one consistent answer for it. Parents of several of Nolan's friends, along with local officials, have reportedly been sent formal notices warning them to expect lawsuits connected to this investigation. According to reporting from the Sun-Herald, those letters were sent by a Richland law firm, Carroll Bufkin plc, working alongside civil rights attorney Ben Crump. It's unclear exactly who received them, but they instruct recipients to preserve all evidence in their possession in its original form and to suspend any automatic deletion functions that could destroy it. It's worth understanding what standard procedure actually looks like here, because a lot of the frustration around this case comes from not knowing the difference between how these things are supposed to work and how this particular case has played out in public. In any death investigation involving multiple witnesses, the standard is to separate everyone individually so accounts can't be compared or coordinated beforehand. Read each person a waiver of their rights on video, and only then take their statement, one at a time, before anyone's had the chance to align their stories. That's not controversial. That's just the baseline. One more thing worth knowing. Polygraph results aren't admissible in a criminal case unless both sides agree to it in advance. That's the law in nearly every state. So when you hear that someone did or didn't take one or passed or failed one, understand that on its own, it doesn't mean what a headline might want it to mean. It can be a useful tool behind the scenes. It is not, by itself, proof of anything. Then came the day of the funeral. On that same day, attorneys representing Nolan's family sent formal 10-page spoliation letters to several friends and their parents, the first formal step before an anticipated civil case. These letters place recipients on legal notice that litigation is genuinely expected, and they create an immediate duty to preserve anything relevant: messages, photos, devices. That duty doesn't end with the person who receives the letter. It extends to their entire household. Grieving a child and taking the first formal legal step toward accountability on the same day is almost impossible to picture unless you're the parent living through it. It tells you exactly how seriously this family is treating the question of what actually happened to their son. Alongside that, Christine has filed a petition in Jackson County Chancery Court to be formally appointed administrator of Nolan's estate. On paper, that's a procedural step. In practice, it gives her the legal standing to file a wrongful death lawsuit if and when anyone is found responsible. This is not a lawsuit yet. Nobody has been formally sued. It's the legal groundwork being laid so that whatever the criminal investigation eventually produces, the family is already positioned to act immediately rather than starting from zero. And even if the grand jury ultimately returns no criminal charges against anyone, that doesn't end this. A civil case runs on an entirely different, lower standard of proof. One more voice has entered this case, and it carries a different kind of weight than most of the commentators involved. Judge Greg Mathis, who spent decades on the bench before his television career, gave his own personal read on this case recently, and he didn't hedge. Asked directly what he believes happened, he said plainly that he doesn't believe this was a drowning. He believes it was foul play. We need to be exact about what that actually is. It's his personal opinion, offered as someone with real legal experience, not a finding of fact, not a verdict, not something he claims to have proof of. He said so himself more than once, that he's weighing this preliminarily, and that the real answer will come from whatever a grand jury does with the actual evidence. His reasoning circles back to the same question this entire case keeps landing on. If a friend tells you he's staying behind on an island alone, why leave without confirming how he plans to get home? If you already have his phone in your possession, why not turn back, even for an hour, to hand it over before you're gone for good? To him, that sequence of choices adds up to what he calls reasonable suspicion, not proof of any specific crime, but enough of an open question to justify a grand jury looking at it. One detail is worth flagging honestly, because accuracy matters more than any single commentator's framing, however credentialed. At one point, Matthijs describes the day as 4 people leaving the dock and 3 returning, a small, isolated group. That doesn't match what's actually documented elsewhere in this case, including in Warren's own account. 20 to 30 people spread across 3 separate boats on one of the most crowded days of the year on that island. It's a reminder that even people speaking with real authority aren't always working from the complete picture, which is exactly why we keep coming back to what's actually confirmed instead of any single account, including this one. Matthijs also spoke to something this case has carried from the beginning, the question of race, and Mississippi's specific history with it. He said directly that he believes racial bias has shaped how this investigation has been handled, drawing a line to the state's civil rights era history, naming Emmett Till and Medgar Evers as part of that same legacy. That's a serious comparison, and it's his to make as his own view, the same way similar comparisons have come from Ben Crump and Reverend Sharpton throughout this case. It's not something we're in a position to confirm or dismiss. It's a perspective a considerable number of people watching this case share, and one others push back on just as strongly. Both reactions are real, and both deserve space in the same conversation. Let's separate everything that's confirmed from everything that's still hanging open, because it's easy for all of this to blur together. Confirmed as of tonight, the full, unedited tow call released directly by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. A more detailed GPS timeline showing the boat's multiple stops before it was finally pulled from the water that evening. Spoliation letters sent to several friends and their parents on the day of Nolan's funeral. Christine's petition to be appointed administrator of Nolan's estate, laying groundwork for a possible wrongful death suit regardless of what any criminal process produces. And Judge Greg Matthijs' own on-record statement that he personally believes this wasn't an accidental drowning. Still pending and worth watching closely, the joint forensic inspection of Nolan's phone, still the single piece of evidence most likely to turn a family's account into something a court can act on. Toxicology results from both the state and an independent lab, still outstanding. Any further public statement from Katie herself, directly, rather than second-hand. And the grand jury process itself, which every single voice in this case, the DA's office, Matthijs, Crump, all of it, keeps pointing to as the moment this either moves toward real charges or doesn't. 2 parents are living every single day without their son. Whatever the grand jury eventually decides, whatever that phone inspection eventually shows, that part of this doesn't change. And that's exactly why we're not walking away from this case until there's a real answer for them. If you want to be here when that answer comes, and you should be, because this case is nowhere near finished, hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the update the second something breaks. Drop a comment with your own theory on what actually happened in those final minutes on that island. And if this video gave you something the coverage you've seen elsewhere hasn't, share it with one person who's been following this case too. We'll be back the moment there's something real to report, not a moment before that.